some other global news that made headlines overnight. US banks that had their debt ratings outlook cut by Moody's. According to Moody's, the US banking sector is facing several sources of strain, which includes funding pressures, regulatory capital weaknesses, and rising risks associated with commercial real estate exposures.
And JP Morgan Chase has recently announced that they are no longer expecting a recession in the US. The bank has gone ahead and raised their economic forecast as the economy expands at what they say is a healthy pace. The firm has increased its current quarter real annualized GDP growth estimate to 2.5% from 0.5%. Now, the growth is contributed to AI growth and improvement in the labor market. What does this report mean, and does it mean that slowed growth will still continue? We spoke with Arnab Das, who's the global market strategist at EMEA Invesco on the same. So listen into what he had to say.
Invesco have been, for many of us, for quite some time, more in a kind of softish or bumpy landing, kind of camp rather than the recession camp. I think a lot of people are sort of, it looks like, throwing in the towel on the recession forecasts and expecting, a reasonable growth rate. Mainly, I think, because the economy has been so resilient in the U.S. and indeed in many other countries, right? And I think the economy has been very resilient because people have really been experiencing very high employment, right? Even if inflation had been very high and real incomes, real wages had been falling for some time, at least they were still very heavily employed. And, throughout the Western world, including especially in the US, you have a very tight labor market. So people have jobs, people have income, and people are spending that income, and that income has been rising, although slower than inflation for some time. In the US now, it's rising a bit faster than inflation as inflation falls. I think it's also a very different kind of economic growth story than the conventional cycle.
And shifting focus now, Tesla CFO Zachary Kirkhorn has stepped down after 13 years with the company. He will be replaced by Webb Haftaneja, an insider who also serves as the chief accounting officer. Shares of the automaker dipped nearly 3% after the news, but recovered to close down a little less than 1% on the day.
And payments giant PayPal announced the launch of its US dollar stablecoin, the first major financial technology firm to embrace digital currencies for payments and transfers. The announcement lifted its shares nearly 2%, which in a way reflects a show of confidence in the troubled cryptocurrency industry over the last 12 months.
And shifting focus then, some good news for Apple fans as your wait for the latest iPhone 15 series may get over soon. According to the Bloomberg, the Apple iPhone 15 series event is to take place in September 13th of this year. This also falls in line with Apple's iPhone launch event timeline that it has followed over the years.